What's up, passionate Pokemon players? I'm Ryan, and we're here for another episode of the Hawks Pokemon Nest. Excited as always. We're going to get into probably our last Team Rockets deck. Actually, I'm a little bit sad with that. I mean, I'm obviously excited to show off the deck, but a little bit sad that I think this is probably the end of the road for my different types of Team Rockets decks. So this one is going to be Team Rockets Arbok. And I threw in some Munkidori, so I call it kind of Snake Monk for fun. So I'm going to go over each card in the deck, why I included it, what it does, and we'll go through the strategy, strengths, and weaknesses on how to play the deck, and we'll finish with some other cards to consider swapping in. So let's get into it. Alright, and the deck list is up on the screen on the left-hand side. Of course, if it's tough to see and you're on mobile or whatever, definitely check out the description. You have the importable deck list is in the description. You can throw that bad boy right into Pokemon TCG Live and put the deck in and test it for yourself. Let me know in the comments. You know, I haven't seen anybody let me know like if they tested out my list and what do you think? What are some improvements to the list to make? You know, I'm always on a time crunch here. I usually got a week between decks, so at some point I'm like, we gotta go. So anyway, let's start with your Team Rockets Arbok. Now, a very interesting Pokemon. It's got it's got an ability and an attack, both of which are pretty. Kind of unique. I don't want to say super unique, but a little bit unique, right? Okay, so let's look at its ability, Potent Glare. So as long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, your opponent can't play any Pokemon that has an ability from their hand except Team Rocket's Pokemon. So that's pretty wild, that as soon as you get this guy in the active, and if you can keep him in the active, which is kind of going to necessitate you always having like one on the bench for if it gets knocked out, and then obviously they can bosses up or whatever they have to do to move something out and then play, but that's pretty limiting. I mean, there's a lot of Pokemon with abilities. I mean, think about Charizard EX right now is one, Marnie's Grimmsnarl. There's a lot of like evolution Pokemon. Like probably the only Pokemon that's safe is my, of course, absolute favorite that I talk about every time, Dragapult, right? Goldango, you know, Gardevoir. I mean, none of them are safe. None of them are safe from this Pokemon, and that makes it really cool. And then its attack. So its attack is very, you know, some may like it, some may not. Some may not want to build a deck around a deck like, I mean, an attack like this. But you know what? That's what we do here. We're always in these weird decks. So this is basically damage spread. Spinning Tail. This attack does 30 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. Each one. So not bad at all. Obviously, we're only doing 30 damage to their active Pokemon, so that's not going to be doing a ton of damage. But, you know, in this meta right now, we see so many people are kind of swarming their bench. They're getting those benches full, so I've been doing pretty well with this deck online. Obviously, I'm not too high up there in the ladder, but, you know, it does pretty well. It does, because it just kind of adds up damage over time. Eventually, you're going to knock them out. Obviously, our Arbok is a single prizer with only 130 HP, so you've got to always have one ready, and it does take 3 energy to use this attack, but, you know, that's no big deal for Team Rocket's Pokemon. Alright, so let's get into the other ones. Team Rocket's Ekans. You know, this one we're really just wanting to use, you know, to evolve. Like, we don't want to get stuck with this guy in the active attacking, but, you know, in a pinch, it does have drag down. Flip a coin of heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is paralyzed, so not bad. Right, and then we have Fezandipiti. I just included one copy of the Fezandipiti in this deck. Obviously, it is a dark type Pokemon, so, you know, although Cruel Arrow doesn't really matter because we are running the dark energies, but still, you know, it's a dark Pokemon, kind of fits the theme. And in single prize decks, Fezandipiti just always feels like a good one, despite it being a 2-prizer, because once you get that knockout, you're able to draw the 3. And then for the first time ever, I have actually never, ever, despite this Pokemon being out for some time, I have never included Munkidori in my decks, and I had to do it. You know, we had to do it. There had to be a time to do it, and in a deck that's spreading around damage and dealing 30 per turn, we need all the help that we can get to continue to spread damage. So I went ahead and I included 4 copies of Munkidori in this deck. For its Adrena Brain, obviously. And once during your turn, if this Pokemon has a Dark Energy attached, move up to 3 damage counters from one of your Pokemon to one of your opponent's Pokemon. So not bad at all. So pretty cool. So we're going to be using that to spread. I mean, the one thing I'll say, admittedly, about this, like, our Arbok only has 130 HP, so we're not like moving a lot of damage here. Like, there's not a ton that we use him, but you know, it does work, it does happen. So you know, there's probably some other ways to make this even better, but let me know. And then moving on to the trainer cards in the deck, first off is going to be the Earthen Vessel. You know, we want to get these Earthen Vessels, well, not the Earthen Vessel with the energies in hand, because we want to be able to either attach to our Arbok or obviously our Munkidoris. So no brainer there. Nest Ball, we need 4 of them. We need to use Nest Ball for Fezandipiti and the Munkidori, as they're obviously over 70 HP, so the Poffins aren't going to work. Night Stretcher, tried and true Night Stretchers, right? Do I have 4 here? I feel like I only have 3, maybe? I always forget. I forget. Yeah, I do have 4 Night Stretchers. I should know this. So, you know, especially in single price decks, we want to be able to pull. Prime Catcher, I feel like, is, yet again, I've been really on Prime Catcher lately, but I feel like it just works with a lot of these rocket decks that we're using. We want to kind of move and groove our Pokemon around, especially our opponent's Pokemon, especially in a bench spread deck like this, where it's probably in your best interest sometimes to try to trap a Pokemon inactive. So as many ways to get their Pokemon trapped inactive as possible. I'm going to take that all day. We are running Arven, so we can pull the Prime Catcher with that, and then obviously we can still use the Prime Catcher after a supporter card. Okay, Super Rod, I do believe I just have 1 Super Rod in here. Maybe I have 2. No, I do have 2 Super Rods. I don't know. Honestly, this one's one. It's kind of my original ratio. It's maybe one that we could do to move around, and I actually probably will, as I'm thinking about this, because I really haven't had issues having to recycle. So I actually think I might change the ratio as I'm thinking out loud. Tried and true 3 Ultra Ball, 4 Arven. No, I'm sorry, I only have 3 Arven. So I do have 3, because we don't always need the Arven. We only need our tools sometimes and items sometimes. There's actually some cards that are much better than Arven here, right? Of course, our boss's orders, and then Hilda. So this Hilda, just once I realized, I've been seeing a lot of people posting cards online lately, and you know, Hilda was a card I looked at and I read it first, and I thought, that's a good card. And then, like, once I saw someone else post it again, I was like, oh my god, this is the perfect card for this deck. Because we can search for an evolution and an energy card, and it can be any energy card. So that's the key, because what slows this deck down, and let me go back to Arbok, is the fact that this Arbok needs 3 dark energy, right? And really, other than really before we got into the Hilda, there wasn't a great way of pulling her. I mean, of pulling these energies. So Hilda, we can grab that energy and we can grab an Arbok, and oh my god, we're set up. As long as we have an Ekans out there, we're good to go. So that's pretty good. That's why I really love this card. I'm including this one as a 4 of. And then Iono. We do need Ionos for hand resets. You know, obviously Fezandipiti can draw us 3, but you know, early in the match before those knockouts, you want to get moving and grooving a little bit earlier. Air Balloon, I love the Air Balloons. I mean, such a great retro inclusion card. Yeah, Air Balloon just really works on our Munkidoris, making sure that they don't get stuck inactive, as well as Fezandipiti. I mean, I oftentimes don't use them on Fezandipitis because I could just attach Retreat. You know, I don't know. I feel like it's better. And now this one, this is the last addition to the deck, and I just felt like it was missing something. And sometimes once these cards start to get older and older, you kind of forget about them. And the Devolution is one. I always remember Evolution. You see those frequently, but Devolution, oh my gosh. We're playing a bench damage spread deck, and our opponent a lot of times is going to get out of it by evolving their Pokemon. So what do? Once you get, like, this is a game finisher. This is a game finisher here, where you've got enough damage around to where you're going to take 2, maybe even 3 prize cards with the Devolution. Boom, that's it. So save that for the end. Honestly, you want to be a little bit careful too. In my opinion, maybe not. You know, you don't want to necessarily show your hand that you even have this in the deck if possible, because then they're going to play around it. They're going to try not to put as many Pokemon on bench, because a lot of times what people are going to think if they don't see the Devolution is, oh, I'm going to put it on. This is only doing 30 per turn. As long as I'm evolving each turn, I'm going to stay ahead of this 30 damage. Once I have a stage 2 Pokemon or even a stage 1 EX, it's going to take them way too long to knock it out. Nope, not with Devolution. So definitely this just took the deck to the next level once I included it. Okay, and then obviously in terms of our energy, we're going to have the 4 Team Rockets energy, and then I went with 6 of the other basic dark. Let's talk about the strategy, strengths, and weaknesses of the deck. Of course, the strategy, as I've been saying, spread damage, right? But before you do that, you also need to be spreading your energy, because if you focus too much on your Arbok, then you're going to forget about your Munkidori needing a dark energy on it too. You know, if you were to prioritize, obviously you want to prioritize your Arbok, but you know, if you've already got 2 loaded up, you know, you've got your active and you've got your bench, you may want to just go ahead and throw that energy on the Munkidori in order to spread that energy around, just to have the availability to ensure that you're able to move that damage around, right? Spread energy, spread the damage, and then basically you're going to profit. You know, profit from there. You're going to win the game usually by doing a devolution, unless your opponent is just playing stage 1s. Basic EXs, which obviously you do see, but not so much right now in this meta. So there's that. The strengths of it, I mean, the deck is like Venom, right? If we're talking about Ekans and Arbok, right? This is like a Venom deck. It's like a slow kill deck that eventually, like before your opponent knows it, they're getting 3-4 cards knocked out in a single turn. And I've done that before with this deck. It's just wild. And if you can get it going early and fast before they have a chance to evolve. You know, remember, we are seeing still so many like Badoos, Joltics. Now we're seeing even I forget, there's a couple of like electric types that have like 40 and 50 HP. Like, that's only going to take you 2 turns to knock them out. So sometimes you're going to win this battle quick if you can get that Ekans. In my opinion, this deck wants to go first. You're going to hopefully you draw into an Ekans, and you can get an energy attached, and then if you find that Hilda turn 2, you might just win. Because if you've attached a dark energy and you have an Ekans inactive, you pull out Hilda and they only have nothing out there, like they might be done for. I've won a few like that, so it's pretty fun. Obviously, it's for the most part a single prize deck, unless they're, you know, bossing up your Fez or counter catching it or whatever. And it is pretty easy to set up. All things considered too, like we only have 9 basic Pokemon in the deck. We're gonna draw into an Ekans first a good amount of the time, right? So that really helps with the setup, and a lot of different types of trainers in order to kind of get us doing what we need to do. Obviously, there's a lot of weaknesses with the deck. The main one is its low damage, right? Low damage, our Arbok's only hitting for 30 HP to their main Pokemon, and then with 130 HP itself, almost anything's going to knock it out. I mean, you can blow on this card and it's going to get knocked out. So it's one of the lowest HP of any stage 1, even for a single prize, but you know what, that's alright. We're just spreading that damage, and you want to focus on just making sure you have one ready to go for the next turn. It also relies on bench damage, so if your opponent isn't going wide on their bench, then, you know, that kind of poison is going to spread a lot slower. You know, they may even opt, once they know, like, for sure that, like, you don't have anything, I mean, they may just keep, like, a beefy stage 2 out there and just knock out, and the best you could do is 30 a turn. Ugh, it's going to get a little hairy there. So that can definitely be a thing to kind of counter it, especially then the Terra Pokemon, and not just Terra in active, but obviously the Terras on bench. You know, if you can hit them until before they evolve, but once that Charizard EX is on bench or the Dragapult, there's nothing you can do. You can't damage anymore. So that can really just take the momentum out of this deck as well. Finally, some other cards to consider swapping in. Obviously, the first one that comes to mind is the Team Rocket's Tyranitar. During Pokemon Checkup, if he's inactive, put 2 damage counters on your opponent's basic Pokemon. The problem with him is that he needs to be inactive. So it's still a decent one to think about, and the reason is, you know, this could be the guy that you do put in your active spot between between Arbok. When your Arbok gets knocked out, you throw him in, but then from there, obviously, you need a way to retreat him, and the big air balloon is only reduced, I mean, not the big air, but the regular, actually, no, you could use a big air balloon. I thought the air balloon's not going to do it, but you could potentially swap out your air balloons for big air balloons, which would give any stage 2 a free retreat cost. So that's an option, and it could help you get more damage, but it's just going to require a lot more setup. I mean, you would for sure have to swap out the Munkidoris, and then you could make this a full-on rocket deck. But it would really change the layout. I tried it at first, you know, that was kind of my initial thoughts, and it just didn't feel like, it just felt too clunky, you know. Being a stage 2, you need too much, whereas the Munkidori's basic, it's easy, right? Then from there, I don't know, this one is one to think about, you know, and I'm trying to incorporate maybe some other tools because, you know, we do have Arven in there, and so the Brave Bengal, obviously Arbok doesn't have a rule box, so he's going to do 30 more damage to active Pokemon. Is this really going to make a big difference in the grand scheme of things? It might. I mean, you're going from 30 to 60 damage, but honestly, from what I find is I'm more like knocking out my opponent's bench than their active. But, you know, and you're probably only going to have it for a turn, so probably not what you want to go with. Now, here's another interesting one, is the Calamitous Snowy Mountains. Whenever any player attaches an energy from their hand to a basic non-water Pokemon, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. And this actually is kind of a double-edged good thing, right? Obviously, we kind of want to find ways to put damage on our Pokemon. So this actually, and this might be what I swap those Super Rods for. I think I'm going to swap them for these because now I have a way to put damage on me that I'm going to Munkidori off. So I think I might go with this. And then obviously your opponent, as long as they're not water, is going to take 2 damage, which there's not a ton of water decks out there anyway. So that's something to think about. And then obviously another one would be Gravity Mountain. Stage 2 Pokemons have minus 30 HP. I think the Calamitous Snowy Mountain does a little bit more here in the damage spreading. But, you know, you do want to think about that some of their Pokemon, they're just never going to put damage. They're just never going to put energy on. So, you know, I don't know. We think about what's better. And then the other one I would think about is Pokegear 3.0, and the reason being is like all of our supporters are like really situational. Sometimes I need Iono, sometimes I need Arven, sometimes I need I already forgot what her name is, the new supporter. Let's find her, Hilda. So the Pokegear is going to kind of give us a little bit more of an up in terms of finding and searching that supporter. I just don't really see room for it in this deck. You know, maybe you want to opt out of one of these 2 stadiums and go with that one, but you know, we'll see. And then obviously we've got the Secret Box. That's the only other one I would think about for our A spec would be Secret Box. Just being able to find anything, you know, especially if we swapped in for the stadium, then I would really think about it more. You know, we get the tool, we get the supporter, and the stadium, so we can really get the whole shebang. I mean, we can get Hilda, we can get the air balloon, and then we can get the stadium. So it would be something to think about. I mean, you can even grab this with Arven, have it going for next turn. The more I think about it, the more I kind of like it, and actually might want to try it out. So I don't know, I'll think about it. But anyway, that's kind of what I've got so far. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Hawks Dragon Ball Nest. Hope you enjoyed this episode. I think as the more I thought about it, and I'm selling myself on the Calamitous Wasteland Secret Box combo. So I may do like 1-in-1 for next video. I may go first match, you know, as I initially presented, and then the second one I may go ahead and swap in the Secret Box in the stadium, and we'll see which one we like better. Also, just a disclaimer, I am taking next week off of making a new deck. I have my sister-in-law's wedding. I will be out all weekend. I won't be able to make any content, and I was sick last weekend, so I'm already like behind 1 week. So I'm just, you know, we're just gonna take it off. We will still have an unboxing. That's still gonna happen, but next week we will not have a Monday and Friday video, so sorry to all of you, but we'll definitely be back with more stuff after that. If you liked what you saw, make sure you hit that subscribe button and become part of the Hawks Nest, a fearless flock of fabulous folks who love to do what we love. Love making these videos. So I'm ready to get into some battles now and show off this deck. And a little bit bittersweet, as I mentioned, because I think it's our last Rocket deck I'll make. But who knows? There's still a lot of Rocket Pokemon. Maybe I'll figure something out later. But until then, we'll see you next time.